I think my future will be here with like frequent travels. And one of the reasons I moved to Cyprus was because I was ready for it, and I was ready to be part of something bigger and more meaningful, let's say, because abroad, when I was studying abroad or living in Prague, I was sort of thinking, so what's next? What am I doing?
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. My guest today is a very, very interesting lady, and we've discussed a little bit before we are going to record how we are going to go about this, because it's a bit of a delicate subject, and I'm so glad that she's here. We are both members of the Cyprus Travel Writers and Journalists Society, and that's how we met. I saw that she joined, and I immediately sent her a friend request because I'm very interested in her. And we'll find out a lot more about her now. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Yaren Fadiloglulari. Did I say that right? Fadiloglulari.
Yeah, it's a tricky one.
It's a long one.
Yeah.
How do people handle your name? I mean, you're an international girl. How do they say it? What's the worst that you've heard?
Very badly. But it's even complicated in my native language, Turkish. At one point, I thought of using a pen name to make my name less complicated and more international. But I was a bit intimidated by the legal aspect of it. And I asked some people for advice, and they said, well, at least you're sure to be the only Yaren Fadiloglulari. So when people Google you, they'll find you immediately. So I'm trying to focus on the plus side now.
Very positive. I agree with that. And, there are lots of names in this world, and it always depends a little bit on who says them. And I think it's but I think it's a cool name. You should keep it because you're a writer and you're a travel writer. And as your friends or whoever you ask say, people will recognize that name. They will see, oh my God, I've seen that before. Whereas if you were just called Fadito or something, it could be anything.
That's true.
Yes. So I have people from many, many countries listening to my podcast. And we're going to have to do a little bit of explaining to do here, because Yaren and I both live on the island of Cyprus. Yaren is Turkish Cypriot. Well, I'm Swiss, but I'm also Greek Cypriot. And the population of Cyprus consists of Turkish Cypriots and Greek Cypriots. And Yaren grew up in the nation's capital, which is Nicosia, which is the last divided capital in the world. She grew up. What was it like, Yaren, to grow up in a divided capital as a young person?
That's an interesting question, because it becomes your norm when you're born here and you grow up here. It becomes your norm, and you sort of don't know another way. When I was growing up in Nicosia, my friends up to a certain age were mostly Turkish Cypriots at school. We spoke Turkish. I started making more Greek Cypriot friends when I joined Cyprus Friendship Program, which aims to bring both communities together. I started going to the buffer zone where you have a nice cafe, and I went to the US with Cyprus Friendship Program. And when you make more friends from the other side, let's say, you start crossing the checkpoint more often, you start exchanging more with the other culture, and you start seeing the similarities. So I think it's very tricky growing up in Nicosia, because you can choose not to see the other side at all and live as like a Turkish Cypriot speaking Turkish or a Greek Cypriot speaking Greek. But you can also have it the other way, like cross very often, see the other culture, and get to know the other side of your city. It's interesting because when you start going to the other side more often, you see that it's the same city. There's just a division.
And don't you also see that the people that you meet have the same problems and the same wishes and the same desires like you have?
Definitely. I think like a lot of my friends go to the other side often, either by car or by walking. And they always have this question, like, why do we wait in the traffic? Because there's only one checkpoint where you can cross by car. There's often like quite a lot of traffic, and most of my friends are like, why are we waiting so long? Whereas like if there was no division, it's like a 10-minute drive, but it could take hours to go to the other side by car.
It's a very, very long story. And as we said before,
Yes.
it is not a political podcast, and I would never want it to be. But personally, I agree with you. Why? Why do we have to wait for so long instead of just, making it one? But I haven't said that. I'm not political. Now, I want to
Same here.
mention the Cyprus Friendship Program. The Cyprus Friendship Program is organized by Rotary, or those friendship programs in general. And one of the reasons why I noticed you when I was stalking you on Facebook was that we have a common friend, and that's Jenny Patroglu. And she was in the Cyprus Friendship Program as well. And I think that is a fascinating idea. And the Rotary Club is one of the few organizations that combines the two sides, that actually has clubs on the other side. We decided to call it the other side. And I think this is very, very bridge building.
Definitely. It's an eye-opening experience, let's say, because there are many people who have never exchanged with the other culture, never been to the other side, are just curious about it. And you join this program, you apply. I think now they're doing some camps in the mountains as well, Troodos Mountains. But in my year, there was only a US trip. You apply for this program, and if you're selected, you get paired up with a teenager from another community. And you do a homestay with a family in the US for a month. They're like your host parents, and they take you around the city, show you their culture, and you talk about Cyprus with them, which is a very interesting experience, because I realize in the US, people saw us as Cypriot teens, not Turkish Cypriot, Greek Cypriot. When you explain, they know like which one of us is Greek Cypriot and Turkish Cypriot. But I think maybe it's because the US is such a big place as well. They see us as just Cypriot teens, and there's less of a division. I think it's one of the ideas why we're sent that far, and we sort of see it a different perspective as well. But it's definitely an interesting experience to travel with people your age who have lived different things and experienced different things their whole lives, but also like similar things.
Yeah, my experience with the people in the United States is that most of the time they think Cyprus is written with Cypress, like the cypress tree, and they have no idea where it is.
We had that a lot as well.
Tell me, before you went to the US with the friendship program, had you traveled before? Had you traveled a lot before?
Not a lot. I've been to Turkey with my parents, because I was 17 when I went to the US. And my first trip with my parents was to Antalya. I was 3 or 4, so I don't remember it very well. Then I remember another trip to Istanbul with my parents. The biggest trip I made before the US was to Paris, again with my parents. It was also my parents' first time in Europe. They'd only been to Turkey beforehand, so it was an exciting trip for all of us. But that's pretty much it.
Where in the US did you go? I think you told me when we met, but I don't remember.
I went to Atlanta.
Oh, that must have been a hot summer.
It was, yeah.
Atlanta gets
not as hot as Cyprus, but quite warm, yeah.
This is really, really an interesting experience. I think it's a wonderful idea, those friendship programs, those exchanges. Did you feel homesick at the beginning?
At the beginning, no, but toward the end, yes, a bit, because we also, like it was the policy of the program, we weren't allowed to bring our cell phones. So we only spoke to our parents once a week, and it was the host family that arranged the call. So toward the end, I think everyone started feeling homesick, but in the beginning, not that much, because everything's new. You're very excited to explore, like spend some more time with people.
So it's a good experience. It's something that you would recommend.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's wonderful. Now, did that open you, like when did you studied in, I don't remember, where did you study?
I studied in Swansea, UK.
Right.
in Wales.
Did you know that before you went to the US, or did that open up the world a little bit for you?
I knew I would be studying in the UK because I was doing a program in the high school that was preparing us to go study in the UK. We did GCSE, A levels, which are part of the education system in the UK. So I knew I would be applying to like UK universities. But I would say the experience in the US helped me decide what I wanted to study. I studied languages, English and French. And before that, I was thinking of studying something like art or architecture because as a kid, I always drew. I was always interested in drawing, creating something with my hands and everything. But in the US, I realized that I realized that I actually like some topics that I thought I hated. For example, they took us to a museum about the Civil War in the US. And before that trip, I thought I hated history because I didn't enjoy history lessons that much at school. But the museum was so well made and our guide was so interactive that I thought I was just not explain history in the right way. I think it also depends how you experience history, how you look at it, because the guide made it an interactive experience for us, the Civil War. He gave us like some cards, and on the card you saw like if you're from the south or the north, and what your role in the war is, and how much food you have, how like what weapons you had, and how you're gonna use them, like if you had water or not. And it was like sort of like a game. And in the next round, you find out if you're still going on with the war or if you're dead, basically. And we learned a lot, and it was such an interactive way of explaining history that it opened my eyes, and I enjoyed the social aspect of it, like, and decided I wanted to be more, I wanted to do something more social in my career, which is a bit ironic because I work remotely, but I enjoyed the social aspects of the experience, and I wanted to do something related to words, writing. So I decided to study languages eventually.
I think speaking several languages is the best thing that can happen to you, because no matter what you do and where you are, it's always useful. It always comes in handy somewhere. I wrote down it's English, French, obviously Turkish, which is your mother tongue, Spanish, and Greek. I heard you speak Greek when we were together there at that brunch. You're working on it.
I'm working on it. It's still work in progress. I think it's a difficult language. There's also this, like when you're learning Greek through like lessons or apps, it's Greek from Greece.
Mm-hmm.
And in Cyprus, the Greek is quite different. And the English level in Cyprus is quite high. So whenever people, I think we talked about this, whenever people hear you like hesitate or like stutter when speaking Greek, they switch to English, which makes it a bit harder to practice. So I think that aspect will be difficult for me in the future, but I'll get there.
Story of my life, because I spoke Greek when I came here. I had learned Greek in Greece, and I'm blonde, so nobody understood that I could actually speak Greek. So even today, after all these years, people still speak to me in English and I speak in Greek. So we have these funny conversations. But okay, practice makes perfect. So after a while, I think once your Greek becomes strong enough, then you will just have to insist. It's just
Definitely.
I insist until they give up, until they actually speak to me in Greek, until they feel stupid. Because sometimes when I'm in a bad mood, I feel like I have said to people, I went into all this trouble to learn your language, and now you're not speaking it with me. Tell me, you lived in Prague. Why did you live in Prague? I haven't found a bridge to that.
I lived in Prague because it was right after a backpacking trip I had with my boyfriend. We traveled in Latin America for 9 months. And after that, when we returned to Europe, we sort of discussed what to do next or where to go. I wasn't ready to move back to Cyprus yet. And he's French and he didn't want to live in France. I just started writing, and I had some more clients at that time, and I wanted to keep on doing that. And he found a job in Prague. So, and I was like, it's a nice city. It could be a nice experience. And we lived there for 2 years.
Did you enjoy living there? I think Prague is beautiful. There is so much culture, so much to do.
I loved it. And our neighborhood was Letna, and our house was like 10 minutes from Letna Park, one of the most beautiful parks in Prague. And I could just go out, walk 10 minutes, and have a view of the whole city beneath me, and take a stroll in the park, and then go to a nice cafe. It was really nice experience.
And it's in the middle of Europe. I mean, it's easy to go to Austria, to go to also, I don't even know what the Czech Republic is surrounded by, but surrounded by many countries.
Yeah, it was really easy to travel.
Yeah.
By bus, by train.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned 9 months in Latin America. I didn't know about that. I want to know more about that. Where did you go?
I went to Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Colombia.
Wow. 9 months, that's a long time.
It is, definitely. It was, I was living in Belgium before that. I was doing an internship with the European Commission. My contract ended, and it was the same period I met my boyfriend, and we both wanted to stay together, but I wouldn't be able to stay in Belgium without the job. And he didn't, he wanted to keep on traveling, and he was ready for something new as well. So we made the quite impulsive decision to take a one-way ticket to Mexico.
I wonder what your parents thought about that.
They haven't said much, but I think they were quite shocked.
I'm saying that because I'm a parent, so yeah. It's okay. Now, your boyfriend now lives with you in Cyprus, and he is French. How is he? Is he adapting well?
He loves it here.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
In Cyprus is a love. That is true. You've mentioned before, and we want to talk about this a little bit more. You are a freelance writer. You have a website, and we're going to put the website in the show notes if somebody, because you do all sorts. I've seen that you do all sorts of work. It's not just travel writing; it's other stuff as well. What is your portfolio? What do you do?
So I can explain it with like 2 different components, I think. The first part of what I do is I pitch my ideas to publications, which is usually my travel writing. If I come across an interesting place or an interesting person or an interesting experience, I want to write about it, I craft a pitch and send it to some publications. And if they commission me, I write about that topic. For example, in Cyprus, I went to Chakas Winery, learned a lot about the wine culture in Cyprus. And then when I made some research about it, I found out that most of the wineries in the area are family businesses. So I wrote an article about what makes Cyprus good for wine travel and what you can get out of it. And it was commissioned by Euronews. And so that's one aspect of my work. And the second aspect is I support marketing teams with their writing needs. It could be blogs, newsletters, landing pages. And in that area, I work with travel brands and education brands mostly, where I get to use my language background a lot, because there are a lot of language learning companies who are interested in my experience. I support their marketing teams by taking on regular assignments, work, and anything related to writing, basically.
Now, I'm not familiar with the expression to be commissioned. Like you were commissioned, you said you were commissioned by Euronews. Does that means that Euronews buys your article?
Yes, I send the pitch. Like, I want to write about this topic. I think it will be interesting because of this reason, something along those lines. And if they say we're interested, how about that line, or this is the rate? What do you think of this angle that we can add? And we agree. That's what I mean when I said commission.
Okay, yeah, because it's. People often wonder, how do people like you earn their money? Because, it's nice to write, but you also have it. money has to come in somehow. You have to finance your life. So there are ways if you do it, if you're good and if you do it the right way. Do you have a dream publication? Who would you, if you could just choose, who would you like to write for?
Oh, I have a lot, but let me think. I want to write for a lot for Lonely Planet. And I think there are a lot of Cyprus stories that they could use, for example. Also, there's this publication called Atlas Obscura. They publish stories about not so well-known places and people and stories around the world. I would really like to write for them as well.
So if anybody listening to us from Lonely Planet, or what's the other one? Atlas Obscura?
Yeah.
Yaren is your girl, so get in touch with her, because I've read a few things that you wrote, and she's amazing. She's fantastic. So
thank you so much.
And Cyprus is I've been here for many years. I am a nature lover and a hiker, and I like the cities as well. But I think Cyprus is not known enough for all the things it offers. You know, people just think it's sea and sun, and nobody talks about all the other amazing things that we can do. I think it's a real shame. What do you think?
Definitely, there's a lot to do, and there's a lot you can discover in Cyprus as well. So one of my goals this year or in the future is to write more about Cyprus and get in touch with publications and share more stories, instead of 10 best beaches in Cyprus type of stories, more unknown, or what you can get out of Cyprus type of stories.
Yeah, funny enough, I've joined the Cyprus Travel Writers, where we met about 3 years ago. And I always thought that I had been everywhere, because I really have been to many places here. But there were 2 places that they actually organized lunches where I had never been. One was Derigudi and the other one was Vicardo. And those are kind of off the beaten path places that are so beautiful. And they are even more beautiful because there aren't so many people there.
Definitely. I think Cyprus is known mostly for the beaches and winter getaway. When it's cold in other places, people sort of chase the sun. But it's not known enough for hiking, as you said. There are magnificent mountains and endless amount of hikes you can do. Wines, there's a wine growth in the Troodos region that you can do a road trip and try different wineries, and really nice villages like Kalopanaiotis, Fikardu, where you get to experience the village life in Cyprus, meet locals, discover the culture in another way.
I want to come back to this sore subject that we weren't going to talk about, but because you now live on the well, let's call it the Greek side of Nicosia. Let's call it the Greek side and the Turkish side. We don't care now, right now.
Okay.
There are beautiful places on the other side. I mean, Kyrenia is beautiful. Ios Hilarion, I want to climb up there. I haven't done that. It's one of the hikes.
I was there last weekend.
Were you?
Yes.
The view must be just magnificent from up there.
It's amazing. You see the mountains and the sea at the same time. And there's this place that's called the Queen's Window on the very top. And you see everything through the window. It's a really beautiful window, and you see the mountain, the sea at the same time, and you're surrounded by the ancient castle. It's really beautiful, worth it to visit.
I always say that I'm not talking about Cyprus only. I'm talking about the Middle East in general. I'm talking about all the countries that don't get on or do get on or whatever. But at the end of the day, when you look at this area, first of all, I believe the Middle East, because I consider Cyprus part of the Middle East. Geographically, we are part of the Middle East. We're not in Europe. Our beautiful food, the spices, the hospitality, people here are all the same. And I always say they even have the same hair, because I'm dreaming of having hair all these curls. I never understood how people can straighten their hair, because I used to do perms when I was young to have a little curl. So, I think it's such politics and religion are, well, how shall I say that now? I have to be careful how I say that. If there weren't politics and religion, this would just be one beautiful, hospitable area where where their only problem would be that somebody could leave your house hungry.
Definitely.
So it's a shame because it's really I love Jordan, I love Lebanon, I love Turkey, I love so many places around here, and it's so difficult sometimes to discuss it, and I can feel it now while I'm talking to you because I'm trying to be careful not to say the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's really tricky.
You're thinking too what to say now.
Yeah.
And it's totally okay.
Let's say it's tricky, but I think I would really encourage people, Cyprus, to visit as many places as you can, and that's when you see how similar it is and how beautiful everywhere is. And you rarely have problems you see in the media, or like these extreme groups who say the other side did this, the other side did this. In real life, you rarely see that, and I would encourage people to see it for themselves. Let's say it that way. I think that's
that's
okay
very diplomatic. You could also be a diplomat, not just a linguist and a writer. But I agree with you, and I think it's bad people make headlines. Good people don't make headlines. Clickbait has to be something bad. So it's propaganda. It's always trying to get people to, people to get people against each other. That's what the media mostly does. Instead of uniting us and understanding the similarities, we have mostly similarities. We have very, very few differences, I think. All of us as humans.
That's true. And for Cyprus, for example, the differences, in my opinion, are language, where there are so many common words between Turkish and Greek, and even the Turkish, Cypriot, Greek, that it could be a bonding experience actually to try and find the common words, or try and understand what a certain word means in the other language. And another difference is religion, which is also which could also be interesting to learn about each other's religion or culture. For example, I find it interesting to learn about Christmas traditions, and someone else could find it interesting to learn about Bayram, like Eid, at the end of Ramadan.
Yeah, and I think younger people, though, what is your experience? Because you're young, you could be my daughter. You're actually the same age as my son. Younger people are they becoming a little bit more open? Are they becoming a little bit more willing to mix?
I would say so, yeah. My experience has been like living on this side of Cyprus. My experience has been like, because I look Cypriot, because I am Cypriot, everyone speaks to me in Greek at first. And if I'm feeling brave enough, I try and reply in Greek. But if I'm feeling a bit shy, or I feel like I didn't understand very well, I just switch to English. And sometimes people ask, I thought you were Cypriot, where are you from? I say, I am Cypriot, but I'm Turkish Cypriot. And people are just curious about what I'm doing, like if I like this side of Nicosia or Cyprus. And when I say I'm living here now, actually, they're curious. They say, why do you live on this side? And what's your experience been living on this side? Have you had any unpleasant experiences, or do you feel like you belong here? Which are interesting questions to me, because I feel like I'm in my country, but I don't speak the language. So in one sense, I feel like I belong. And in the other sense, I feel like whenever people ask me, why do you live on this side? I feel like I have to justify myself. Yeah. Which I don't have to actually, but I feel like I have to justify it because I'm self-employed. I cannot do that in the other side of Cyprus because it's not officially recognized, and my clients are international. So I always go into that, and I feel like I justify myself every time this topic comes up.
It's crazy. The more I listen to you, the more I believe I understand how bizarre the whole thing is. And have you had, because you asked a question that people ask you, have you had any unpleasant experiences?
No.
No. That's nice. That is
Like,
good to know. So there's hope.
Definitely. I moved here in September, so it's been a little longer than 6 months now. I haven't had any unpleasant experiences. My experience has been mostly people are curious. Like they're like, isn't it cheaper on the other side? Why are you why are you living on this side? Or what's your experience on this side? So I would say it's mostly curiosity rather than unpleasant experiences.
Beautiful. Now, we're coming to the end, but I want to know, what does the future of Yaren look like? Are you going to stay here, or are you going to travel again, or are you going to go and live somewhere else because your boyfriend is French? What do you think you're going to do?
I think my future will be here with like frequent travels. And one of the reasons I moved to Cyprus was because I was ready for it. And I was ready to be part of something bigger and more meaningful, let's say, because abroad, when I was studying abroad or living in Prague, I was sort of thinking, so what's next? What am I doing? What's my job going to be? What's my future going to be like? And one of the reasons I moved to Cyprus was I was ready for it, and I wanted to contribute more to the culture, get to know more people, write more about Cyprus, which is easier when I'm based here rather than abroad. And I want to show people that it's possible. Like, you can do a lot of things when you're in Cyprus as well, because the mentality is mostly, this is a small island, you can't do anything here, at least in, let's say, in the Turkish Cypriot community, like for most people. But I want to encourage people to push their boundaries. And even if it seems impossible, there's always something better to do. I'm not saying it because I know it sounds a bit, maybe it sounds a bit weird, because I've traveled a lot and I had a lot of opportunities, but I also had to create most of that opportunities. For example, I email editors out of the blue. I ask if they want to work with me. I emailed the president of Cyprus Travel Writers Association, like if they're open to get, if they're open for new members. And I think some opportunities you create them by yourself.
You create everything. We create our lives. And I think
Definitely.
You're a beautiful ambassador for all these things, including uniting people. Maybe not politically, we don't know about that, but people. I mean, this is how it starts. It starts with the people, and I think you're a perfect example for that. And whoever is listening to us, if you come across Yaren, speak to her in Greek and see what happens. Thank you so much.
To me in Greek in 2 years, let's say.
Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys today, Yaren Fadiloglulari.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.